So thanks everybody for joining and good morning. Again, my name is Carrie Fallhaber and I'm the Vice President with JobsFirstNYC. I am really happy to welcome you today to our first official meeting of the Green Economy Sector Network, which is focused on building an inclusive green economy for New York City. And I say first official because Jobs First and our three host partners, Green City Force, the HOPE program, and Nontraditional Employment for Women, have been meeting and planning for this day for more than a year. A pandemic got in the way of us having it sooner, but we're really excited to have it today. The impetus for this conversation, I think it began when our partners approached us with a desire for an organized New York City Green Sector Network that could align workforce agencies that are delivering green job training and align that with employers and policymakers and others that are focused on the growing green job sector. And today we're kicking off a broader collaborative effort that is anchored by our organizations, but really needs all of you here to be focused on creating a sectoral employment network for New York City. It takes the efforts of everyone working in this ecosystem to make that happen. Before I go any further though, I do want to point your attention to our public participant agenda. I shared that with everyone who was registered in advance. And we're going to be using that throughout. So if possible, it'd be great if you could have both that up and the screen with all of the attendees so that we could both have conversations. And you can follow along on the agenda and use the tables and places that have been created inside of that participant agenda for you to record your thoughts and for us to record some key points that come out of conversations today. And let me just go over a few quick housekeeping things. First, I want to note, very important, that this event's being recorded. And if anyone has objection to that, I guess you could let us know, but we will be recording it because this is going to be the first meeting in a series of meetings, and we want the opportunity for folks who join somewhere down the line to be able to go back and watch this meeting. So let me just go over some Zoom and online collaboration norms, and they're also on that participant agenda and on the screen. So locate your mute button, and please be sure to mute yourself while you're not talking to eliminate background noise. And locate your chat box. Use the chat for asking questions. Someone from our team will be monitoring it, and so will our co-hosts be watching as they can and answering if they can in real time. If you happen to join by phone, there's instructions there to link your audio and video together. And if you want to speak during Q&A, please use the raise your hand. There's the raise your hand feature, and there's some instruction there that shows you how to do that. And in breakout groups, obviously, just unmute yourselves. And if possible, show your face. We really want this to be a conversation, and we want you to take space and make space. So speak up when you have something to say, and be brief when you can. And as you see on the agenda, we have some great guest speakers joining us today. But again, please remember, this is a conversation, and there will be periods throughout for us to speak together. Okay, so we're going to just do a quick little breakout activity, just warm everybody up and have an opportunity to collect some information around what you hope to gain out of this meeting. So in the participant agenda, which a link is shared in your chat, in the meeting chat, you'll see a list is already populated with names and organizations for the people who confirmed their registration. If your name isn't there, please go ahead and add it. And I learn every day. And if you want to, the participant agenda is public. and you each have access to it. So we would really appreciate if you could find your name on the list, where Jessica is showing it on the screen now, what it looks like. And if you see your name there, if you could respond to that question, what is one thing you hope to gain out of this meeting? Because this will, it may not necessarily help inform this meeting's agenda, but it certainly will help inform the next meeting and future meetings as we work on this process to develop a network. So, you know, take time whenever you have to fill that in. And for now, though, I'm going to move on. I think, you know, I heard lots of great reasons why people are here today. And we'll have opportunities to share that in conversation throughout, and you'll be able to ask questions. And I am now, in the interest of time, going to toss it over to our three co-hosts, Kathleen Culhane, the president of Nontraditional Employment for Women, Jennifer Mitchell, the executive director of the HOPE program, and Elizabeth Shepard, the strategic advisor of Green City Force. So thank you all, and I'm going to give your attention to them.
Wonderful. Well, I can't see Kathleen and Jen, so I am just going to talk. Oh, there they are. Okay, thank you. But this is a beautiful site, so I'll just dive in and kick us off by saying how excited I am to be here with all of you, and we have indeed been hoping for this day for quite some time. So Green City Force trains young leaders to power the green economy through service, and we focus exclusively on young people who live in NYCHA. I am a co-founder of the organization, and I was until last month the executive director. And so I want to start out by actually introducing our new executive director, Tanya Gail, and asking her just to say a word. Tanya?
Hi, morning, everybody. It's great to be here. I'll be pretty brief, but I'm really excited to be here. I've been with Green City Force for 6 years. So it's great to see so many familiar faces and some new ones. Basically, you know, GCF is about collaboration and partnership and systemic change. And I feel like this Green Economy Network is representative of all those things. So I'm just really excited for what's ahead, and appreciate Lisbeth driving this for us for the last few years and going forward.
Thank you so much. It seemed to make sense for me to introduce the history of this project, since, as Tanya said, it's been a while. And so I wanted to start by saying that Green City Force came to the Young Adult Sectoral Employment Project now actually, like, I think it's 4 or 5 years ago. And it was really because we weren't the green economy is central to our mission at Green City Force, and we really weren't seeing the kind of jobs and career paths that had brought us to this work. And so we wanted to do something about it. So we really appreciate the framework that Jobs First offered us with YASA. And we had 2 parts to our strategy. The first one was to say, beyond the big aspirational aspect of the green economy, and then the polemics of green jobs and what's a green job and what's not a green job, we decided to focus our frame of what the jobs would be that we'd hone in on to build these career paths around the notion of sustainable and resilient buildings and communities. And basically, this is because if you think about everything that needs to happen to buildings, outside, inside, the land around, you know, there's so many different jobs that actually have interrelated concepts and have transferable skill sets at the entry level. So this is important in working with young people because they may start down a career path and then decide to change. Secondly, we acknowledge that many of these jobs are policy and contract driven, and that if we were going to make headway, it really wasn't going to work just to focus on labor market data. And instead, we wanted to hone in on where the investments were flowing and how we could build out multi-year, multi-partner partnerships around this notion of career pathways for our graduates. This still left the bigger challenge of how we could work in this sector in a more game-changing way. And this led us to want to engage with Hope and New and to ask questions like, how can we connect the dots of what our respective workforce organizations have to bring to the table, work with institutions, work with employers to build robust career pathways for people who are facing systemic barriers to employment. So I want to pass it over to Jen, wherever she now went. There she went, up in the corner, to build out the story from there.
Excellent. Thank you, Lizbeth. Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Mitchell. I am the Executive Director of the HOPE program. I'm thrilled to be here today with all of you. HOPE has been doing workforce development for over 3 decades, about 36 years, but we really entered into the green economy and doing green workforce development only about 5 years ago, when we partnered with Sustainable South Bronx and brought them into the HOPE family. But for me personally, it's the green economy and green workforce development is really reflective of what we want to be doing to lift up those our most vulnerable neighbors and give them the jobs and the trainings and the career path to make a difference in their own communities and in the world. So I always look at it as a win-win. Kathleen and I, who I'll introduce in a couple minutes, were talking last night, and this conversation actually started among the 3 of us when Kathleen and I were both working on our strategic plan about 3 years ago. And we said, why don't we interview Lizbeth together about Green City Force and the green economy? And the 3 of us started having this conversation, and Lizbeth had all these ideas about how we could work together. And Kathleen and I were like, let's go for it. And so I'm going to give you a really brief just perspective on how I look at it. And I then turn it over to Kathleen to give you some examples of how we see the work going forward. So part of the vision is, even in the best of times, it's great to have peers who are like-minded and have similar goals to celebrate with and also commiserate with. And in the worst of times, which we're currently living through, it's invaluable. We're all trying to make a difference. We're all trying to train amazing folks who have not necessarily had all the opportunities and to get them into great jobs with career pathways and livable wages. And how best to do it, but bringing together experts and best practices and sharing resources and sharing ideas and then moving it forward. And so I'm thrilled to be part of this, and also thrilled to be working with Jobs First, because they have a tried and true process that a lot of you are going to hear about today. They've done this several times with place-based employer networks. This is the first time we're going to try it with sector-based employer network instead of a place-based employer network. But I'm just going to say, from HOPE's perspective, we've been part of 2 of their employer networks. We're actually on the steering committee for their Jerome Avenue Revitalization Collaborative in the Bronx. And we are also co-chair of the Yes Bed-Stuy Employer Network. And so we invest a ton of time and energy and talent into these collaboratives because we believe that together and working together rather than competing, we can really do a lot more and impact the people that we serve in much better ways, in more thoughtful ways, and in more creative ways. So I'm thrilled to be here with all of you today. I can't wait to hear people's ideas and start really rolling up our sleeves and getting to work on this, because the time is now. We're in a climate crisis, we're in a health crisis, we're in an economic crisis, and I don't think we will find solutions unless we work together. So here's Kathleen for some of our more specific visions.
Thanks, Jen. So I'm going to wrap up for the 3 of us in terms of our intro. So you heard a little bit about our history. We've been really excited to do this work together and with Jobs First to really bring this to fruition. And so really excited to be here today. At New, we've worked with employer networks like Lesson that you'll hear from to ensure that construction projects throughout New York City, for example, represent the workers, represent the communities that we all serve, and that happens throughout the city. At New, we've been placing women in the construction trades and related fields for over 40 years. And these jobs are not just green jobs, but they're green careers. And that was part of what was so exciting for us at New to be part of this endeavor, and continues to be. There'll be so many opportunities. There'll be so many opportunities for the people we serve, the people that have been hardest hit by the pandemic. And this is one of many ways to make sure that those opportunities go to the people most in need. So really excited for that. As Jen said, I wanted to talk ever so briefly about, what this can bring and what the opportunities are. It's opportunities to share our work with employers, to share job orders. If there's more than New can immediately fill, or any of us can immediately fill, it's a way to think about how we provide employers what they need most. It's a way to share opportunities in terms of funding, in terms of policy, in terms of lifting our voice. We've done some of that work already. You'll hear from one of our staff members how our organizations have been working already as part of this effort, Eric from New, in terms of that. And it influences our training resources. It's been already influencing a lot of what we do. So really excited to be here. And I now have the pleasure of introducing Adele Ferranti, who's the program manager of Nyserda. Nyserda is a key collaborator and supporter in these efforts. Currently supports Green City Force, Hope, and New in all of our work to ensure that New Yorkers have access to green economy careers. Welcome, Adele.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It is very exciting because we are working with all three of the founding organizations for this event. So that's something to be very proud of. I am the program manager, as was mentioned, for the Nyserda's workforce development and training programs. And we really support training needs for all clean energy technologies across all sectors: commercial, residential, low income, multifamily buildings. And as I mentioned earlier in the breakout, we support workforce training for not only new workers trying to enter the clean energy economy, but existing workers who are looking to upgrade their skills to be better prepared for the clean energy economy. And as all of you know, at the start of 2020, New York State had a significant number of clean energy jobs. I don't know if you've seen our clean energy industry report. We had about 160,000 clean energy jobs at the start of 2020, and that was a 9% growth since 2016. And with COVID, we saw 20,000 unemployment claims in the clean energy sector. Those jobs are starting to rebound, but that's only a portion of the losses. And if we're going to deliver on our commitment to the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, or CLCPA, and support a sustainable and equitable economic recovery, we really need to get the clean energy industry growing again. We need to help the industry survive this current crisis and grow beyond that and through the years coming up. So a couple of programs I do want to mention that are, I think, important fits here, and these are some of the programs that the teams here are participating in. We have funding, we have a total of $108 million. We have a lot of money. And one of the things I mentioned in the breakout group is if I could come away with anything from this meeting, it would be to come away with new partnerships, new partners, because we have, again, $108 million. We're working with training providers to build training capacity. Again, train new workers, existing workers. Anytime. You okay? Anytime we have projects to train new workers, we like job placement services and job preparedness connected to that. And currently we have 24 projects through our capacity building program that are slated to train 7,000 workers. And for us, it's a real focus for us to serve priority populations, workers with additional barriers to employment. And out of those 24 projects that'll serve 7,000 trainees, 12 of those projects are focused on our priority populations. So that's very exciting. We're doing a lot of work to help disadvantaged workers. At the same time, we have a building O&M program that supports building O&M training across large portfolios. We have over 42 projects in that area, and we are slated to train 6,000 building O&M professionals. And as Elizabeth mentioned, it's people with similar skills, similar training needs, and so we can do that across a portfolio and reach scale. Another great opportunity we have is our on-the-job training program. where we're funding a portion of a new worker's wage while they're trained on the job. And it could be anywhere from a 50 to 75% incentive for 4 to 6 months. So while we're building up the training capacity, we're helping employers hire new workers and get them up to full productivity as quick as possible through the on-the-job training program. And we also have an internship program to help businesses bring on new workers, to introduce those workers to clean energy careers. And the cool thing about this, if you think about bringing on an intern, our average subsidy is about $4,000 for an intern. We pay 75 to 90% of their wage. Once you have an intern, and if it works out well, and it could be up to 6 months full-time, you could hire them through the OJT program. That would be another $7,000 or $8,000 incentive. So just as an example, a combination of an intern, and if you brought them on through the OJT program, that could be $11,000 or $12,000 in incentives from Nyserda, with, again, incentives are higher for priority populations. Final program I want to mention is our new career pathway solicitation that was just released a couple of weeks ago. It's an $8.5 million investment to get new workers career paths for people in the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning sector, focusing on heat pumps. Building electrification is a huge priority for Nyserda, but these are projects to, again, develop career pathways for priority populations in HVAC careers. So we're very excited about that. Another new initiative coming up, we're working with SUNY Farmingdale and SUNY Stony Brook, and we hope to have a new solicitation out next month to develop career pathways for disadvantaged workers in the offshore wind area. So another exciting opportunity to be released soon. So I know I went over a lot. I want to honor my commitment to just talk for a few minutes so we can answer any questions.
Thanks, Adele. I don't know if Kathleen is still there to unmute, but I'm happy to just invite everyone to ask questions, unmute. If you want to speak up, just remember to click the unmute button. And Adele is going to be with us throughout, but please chime in with questions that you have for her now.
And hi, Mike Conway from Stacks and Jewels.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Stacks and Jewels, sorry.
Adele, I might kick us off just by asking you to hone in a little more on the heat pumps. Everybody's talking heat pumps right now. So maybe if you could break down, like, what, if someone were new to the whole heat pump conversation, what would they want to know? Like in our breakout group, we had someone who's coming at this from a high school perspective, for example, and we work with young adults. And like, so what's the opportunity to train for jobs in heat pumps? So is this going to be a big thing for the next many years?
Yeah, so as you know, there certainly has been a big need for new workers in the HVAC area. A lot of retirements, a lot of job openings, a lot of job growth. And as Nyserda and the utilities focus on our energy efficiency goals, building electrification and heat pumps will play a huge part of that. There are significant utility incentives on the street for heat pumps, which is really driving demand, and it's really giving opportunities for HVAC businesses to expand into heat pumps. We see it as a tremendous career opportunity for students, especially those that maybe don't want to go on to get a college degree. Some pretty decent wages that can be earned for heat pumps. We've heard some HVAC companies talk about within a few years, people can be making $60,000 to $65,000 a year. So we do think it's a great opportunity for new workers. Again, they would need to certainly get some basics on heating, ventilation, air conditioning, but not everyone will be a technician. As you know, there's technical sales. There are folks that will do energy audits to help better really lay the framework for installation of a heat pump. And there are, certainly a lot of jobs for technicians that will install and service heat pumps. So we do see it as a huge opportunity in New York State and a significant potential for growth.
Great. Other questions for Adele?
I have one. First, thank you so much, and good to see so many people here. Michael DeVito from sunny Staten Island, working with young people who are at promise, who are out of school and out of work, and using, for the most part, the same traditional funding sources and funding streams to provide opportunity. What is your sense of when or if there is going to be a turning of the corner here for funding at different levels to really start embracing these training tracks and these career pathways? And I frame that from the perspective of having attempted to apply for funding at a couple of different levels and not getting it yet. While this type of stuff doesn't seem to be funded, particularly at the city level, they're continuing to fund things like home health aid and these training tracks that really are just entry-level positions. So are there conversations at various levels that are really starting to work to ensure that these types of career pathways are funded well, particularly I think for New York City?
Are you talking about state funding or city funding for the training programs?
So I guess I'm talking specifically about city. So meaning to say that I understand that I understand what you just described, and I'm sure you're having a lot of conversations and you're hearing a lot of things. And from our end, we don't really hear very much. And we often are applying for things so like an example, we've applied 3 or 4 times to DYCD with green energy training tracks, and we're not approved, as an example. So is there a climate change happening at all levels of government where we're going to start seeing more funding opportunities for organizations and for folks that are working with populations who are at promise?
Yeah, I certainly can't speak to city funding. Maybe there's someone else on the group here that can, but in terms of New York State, we have made a commitment to funding clean energy workforce development and training since about 2010 and beyond, first through the Green Jobs, Green New York program with significant funding. But as I mentioned, we currently have a budget of $108 million with a goal of training 40,000 workers or more. So we certainly have a steadfast commitment at Nyserda. The programs I mentioned are all on the street already, except for the offshore wind, which is coming. So there are certainly several funding opportunities right now that you could apply for if you meet the requirements of the PONs. But happy to discuss that offline. I'm not sure if anybody can speak to the New York City programs.
Anyone want to speak to the New York City funding opportunities? We also have time in the breakout session and certainly after this meeting, and we hope you all will be continuing to have these conversations with us. So thank you so much, Adele, and thank you all for your questions.
I just have, hi, I kind of one more question for Adele.
Joel.
Yes, hi, everybody. My name is Joel DeCasa. I work for Grant Associates. I am the director of the Career Advance program in Brooklyn. I have a 2-part question. One of the questions I have is we do some internal trainings, they're short-term trainings, and I'd like to know if you have any type of train-the-trainer type programs we can provide internal trainings, and also what do you have a breakdown of the job trainings that your organization offers that we can outsource and refer to?
So yes, our capacity building program, and after this call, I'll send a flyer that has a listing of all our PONs. I don't think it has the new career pathway PON, so I'll just send that as a separate summary. But the capacity building PON, which is PON 3981, does provide funding to train trainers. So we have done that in the past. It typically would be a project that includes some sort of curriculum development or modification, and then training trainers on the curriculum, the new modifications, and then deploying that, through trainers. So yes, we do have funding for that. I'm not sure if I understood your second question.
The second question would be to refer our clients out to different types of trainings with your company. Would it be with your company, or would it be with outside another partnership?
Yeah, so
for whatever type of green
Yeah, New York, Nyserda, in my program, we're not offering any training directly. It is through training partners like Green City Force, like Wildan, like New, Sustainable South Bronx, Solar One, Association for Energy Affordability. So those programs may or may not discuss kind of the Nyserda funding as part of the training you see available online. Sometimes it's kind of behind the scenes, other times it's marketed as part of their training, but I would encourage you to really just kind of do your own search for the training. And there are, as I mentioned, 24 partners out there with Nyserda offering training. We are working with the Workforce Development Institute, WDI, who's developing a platform for people to post their training so people can go to one place to find training. It's called, I think, the Skills Exchange. So we're excited about that new platform, and I could send a link to that after the meeting as well.
Great. Okay, so thank you, Joel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adele.
Thank you.
Some of the information, the plethora of information is already in the chat, folks. We'll put the rest of that information in the chat. As you heard, there is a lot of opportunity here. So again, thank you, Adele, and Adele will continue to be with us this morning. So I now move back to Lizbeth.
Wonderful. All right, thank you so much. So really excited that Adele just spoke because like I said earlier, it's about what's driving the jobs, and so much of the investment of Nyserda is driving the jobs. So we wanted to start with the state and then come down to the city. And in New York City, we've got a city within a city, which is NYCHA. And we're so excited that today to present about how this conversation is relevant to NYCHA, we have not one, but two people who represent both sides of this green economy coin, I suppose one would say. But anyway, you know, on the one hand, we have Shana Castillo, who's the Director of Resident Economic Empowerment and Sustainability at NYCHA, which goes as REES for shorthand. And then we have Ellen Zielinski, who's the Director of Energy and Sustainability at NYCHA. And they are phenomenal intrapreneurs making things happen in NYCHA. And I'm so excited to turn it over to them. Once again, I can't see you, but I'm just putting it out there to the Zoomiverse and hoping that the two.
Thank you so much, Lisbeth.
Yay,
This is
okay, you're there
Zielinski.
somewhere.
Hello there, everyone. So as Lisbeth said, I'm the Director of Energy and Sustainability for NYCHA, and I'm the lucky person who gets to oversee the programs to bring renewable energy to NYCHA rooftops, to oversee waste management infrastructure upgrades, so that way we can clean our developments and also improve recycling and reduce pests. I'm working on stormwater management, green infrastructure, really looking at climate adaptation and how we can improve our buildings. And also we're doing all the energy efficiency work, trying to upgrade NYCHA's heating and cooling systems, and really think about how we can start driving our buildings more toward net zero construction. So a very exciting collection of programs that I oversee. Now it is NYCHA, so I think that everyone is aware that we have historic challenge with our buildings. NYCHA houses 500,000 residents. We are bigger than some cities in the United States, including Pittsburgh. So this is really a big challenge as well. NYCHA's capital budget shortfall is currently $18 billion with a B. And as you guys know, NYCHA's residents are facing a lot of problems. They have leaky pipes. They have buildings that need upgrades. You know, they have outdated kitchens and bathrooms, and there's so many investments that our buildings really do need in order to bring them into a state of good repair. And honestly, I think we can all admit that NYCHA's residents in many cases have just been left behind in terms of the opportunity that living in New York City has presented and the ability to accumulate wealth and access jobs. Historically, this is a population that has needed so much in terms of investment and opportunity. And so that's really where I come in and where I think this program has so much opportunity. We are at a historic time for NYCHA. We have incredible new leadership with Greg Russ. And as you may be aware, NYCHA now has a partner with HUD. We have a HUD monitor. And through that relationship, we have been able to exponentially grow our budget, which is extremely important. Funding for NYCHA to upgrade our buildings and to do all the programs that I just mentioned is coming from the city under our mayor. It's coming from the state and through investments in organizations like Nyserda. And we receive significant funding from HUD, and more money is coming, like I said, because of our partnership with the federal HUD monitor. So just some specifics. For energy performance contracting, which is an important way that we're implementing work, we already have $300 million worth of energy performance contracts in place currently, and we are planning to roll out additional energy performance contracts. In addition, like I said, in partnership with HUD, we now have $500 million to upgrade NYCHA's waste management infrastructure. This is an agreement that we just reached over the last few months, and that funding is now starting to come to this agency, and that is an incredible investment to really clean our developments, to improve our recycling rate. This is really a cause to celebrate for sure. And I'm also happy to say that with the coronavirus outbreak, many programs have been delayed or put on hold or canceled, but that is not the case for NYCHA. The city and the state and the federal government have recognized that in order to keep our buildings in a state of good repair and to stabilize their condition so that we can ensure affordable housing, that the investment needs to continue. And my work has not stopped or slowed down at all throughout this pandemic. And I think that is important to note, because I feel like a lot of people are becoming, a bit hopeless, right? Because where are the job opportunities? Where is the money? And I'm happy to say that at NYCHA, we are actively doing construction projects right now. We have NYCHA residents installing solar on our buildings at some of the different locations that we have. Our solar program is moving forward. I have waste management infrastructure, and I just want to make sure that people know that these investments are coming. And certainly are not just coming, they're underway. And I think that this is just critical to the conversation that we're having today. And I should also mention local law compliance, right? We have local law 87. We're working on the audits and retro commissioning and all the other compliance factors for our buildings, for our thousands of buildings across the city. And there's local law 97 that NYCHA is really starting to look at. How can we achieve these ambitious carbon reductions across our portfolio? How can we do more gut rehab and comprehensive modernization projects to really make NYCHA buildings something to be proud of, and that our residents can have pride of place? So with these investments, it's not just a technical challenge, right? I mean, that's why we're all here today. This isn't just about selecting HVAC equipment, right? Even though that is an important part. I love talking about selecting HVAC equipment. This is also about how do we mobilize these investments as an opportunity for our residents? How do we engage them so that way these dollars that are being spent on our government, this government investment that's being invested in public housing is an opportunity to raise up our residents. They should be the beneficiaries from this work. So the workforce development opportunities, the funding opportunity, engaging them in planning. I feel like this is really a historic opportunity for NYCHA, and one that we're very excited about. And just quickly, to use our solar program as an example, we had to design the RFP so that way minority and women-owned businesses could apply, because sometimes government contracting is difficult to navigate. So we spent a lot of time looking at partnerships, looking at this network, saying, how can we find NYCHA residents that could be trained to install solar? How do we work with smaller businesses and not just huge companies? And we had to have a lot of training sessions. We work very closely with CUNY. And I think it's this network and it's this partnership where this magic happens, right? I need the assistance of the broader New York City network of hiring and training and workforce development in order to connect that to the investments that we're making. And so I'm very excited about the opportunity that's here. And that's what I'm really looking for through this conversation today, and hopefully creating a larger network. So as these investments happen, NYCHA residents can be the direct beneficiaries, or other low-income individuals can receive the impact and benefit from the investment that's being made.
Awesome. Thank you, Ellen. Shauna, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Ellen. So very quickly, in addition to the work that Ellen spoke about under our sustainability agenda, there is also substantial work that we're doing under our real estate portfolio, primarily looking at our pact conversions, which do have to comply with certain regulations. And so that provides another set of contracting opportunities, of course, which will then lead to workforce and training opportunities for NYCHA residents and NYCHA Section 8 voucher holders. The PACT portfolio also provides a very unique opportunity to participate as a partner with a developer, really through a social service lens. So that's really something for folks on organizations on this call to pay close attention to, because our PACT projects, and that's really where we're converting from Section 9 public housing funding source to a Section 8 funding source, which has traditionally been a more stable funding source. These conversions happen, and also under our HUD regulations do need to ensure that there's a social service arm for residents. And so again, developers bring on a primary social service organization who may also bring in a smaller network of organizations. And there they can really play a role in providing workforce and training opportunities for the residents who currently reside in that development and will become NYCHA Section 8 tenants. Very quickly to wrap up, just to explain a little bit more about what we do at REIS, we're under our community engagement and partnerships portfolio of the Housing Authority. We have been working over the past 10 years really to build a network of partners, of which many of you on the call are some of our very key partners. And that's really to Ellen's earlier point about really working through a network model because we're undertaking a ginormous task. We're really trying to get NYCHA residents prepared to participate in the new economy in ways that they have been traditionally left out. And we recognize that we cannot do this on our own, but we can do, and we have over the past 10 years really moved that envelope so much further through great partnerships.
Thank you so much. And I hope everybody understands like what we wanted to do here was to, going back to my earlier sharing about Green City Force's strategy, really like look at where the investments are to answer the question of where are the jobs, like look at where the investments are, and then what is NYCHA currently doing, but also what do they need? What do they need from this community to be able, as Ellen said, to, and Shanna both, like to be able to make this real. So I'd love to invite some questions for Ellen and for Shanna. I see some are already happening in the chat. Mike, I don't know if you want to ask your question, which is a great one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so Mike Conway with Stacks and Jewels, and it's really exciting to I'm so glad that I joined in this morning because I'm just feeling it. Yeah, so Ellen, one of the ways that so what Stacks and Jewels does is we work in building automation. So we really focus on the technology side of energy efficiency. We train our mainly high school juniors and seniors around lighting controls, and then basic HVAC understanding. And then the capstone is building integration. So we train them in a system called Niagara, which controls, and I believe that NYCHA buildings are now at least transitioning to using Niagara as a system integrator. So my question is, just to give a quick example, is in the high schools, we have the students, do a lighting audit of their own high school and then put together, working with industry partners, a retrofit proposal so that they can calculate the savings, and then they actually pitch that proposal to people that might be able to make it happen. And I'd really be interested in a model working with NYCHA where we could work with residents on their own building to perform these types of audits, and then work or with in buildings that already have retrofits underway, so that we can tap into the work to actually train and connect our students with ongoing work. All right, so my question is, are there opportunities for that, or have you engaged in that kind of collaboration before?
You know, the first starting point is just knowing that people exist who are doing this work. That is like the first place that we need to mobilize. And so, for example, Green City Force has spent a lot of time trying to advocate, you know, as an example, they've been trying to advocate for the service and the connection that they make to NYCHA youth and training programs. So as an example of something very similar to what you just described, we're working with Green City Force through funding from Nyserda to do an energy service learning program. So leveraging Green City Force's connection to youth and NYCHA developments, Green City Force put together a wonderful curriculum that really does what you described. So we're looking at training the NYCHA residents on how to do audits of their buildings, but also we connected them with practical help that we need. So for example, we're installing different sensors in resident apartments, and we needed help with the installation and also educating residents about what we're trying to do, what is the benefit, being able to collect data, giving residents more control over their own apartments, et cetera. And so Green City Force has been helpful in that they're able to provide an educational opportunity, but they're also able to provide very practical help to us in terms of installation, being boots on the ground. And then also looking at, you know, we just have issues with our utility bills, and we have estimated readings. So these are opportunities where, like, can we have NYCHA residents or other participants actually going in the field to help do geotagging, learning how to use GIS, using some remote devices. There are a lot of opportunities that would be mutually beneficial where we need boots on the ground assistance and where there's a real educational opportunity. Just another quick example of this from a previous job, I worked for DCAS Energy Management, the city agency that looks at installing solar on city government buildings outside of NYCHA. And we actually work with the Department of Education to develop a training program for high school youth who were already learning about carpentry and electrical, and we actually taught them how to do solar installation basics. So we funded that program. And then the challenge then is, how do you connect them to contracting opportunities? So for NYCHA's solar program, we are actually hiring NYCHA residents to participate in the installation of those solar PV arrays. So this is part of the trick, is like, how do we do the training and then provide either actual job opportunity or at least hands-on opportunities? So then people are also building their resumes. They're learning and they're getting very practical experience to help grow their resumes and experience to build that career pathway. So that's part of also the importance of, like, me just knowing who's out there and what opportunities. You know, we spent a lot of time with Green City Force putting agreements in place. Now we're working on contracting opportunities. So that way we can work with them as ideas come up. So that is part of the challenge here and the opportunity.
Thank you, Ellen. What I can say, Mike, is that we'd be happy to engage offline, and you know, we work with young people who have a GED, a high school diploma and up. And if you're working with high school students, like, who knows, maybe there's some way we can put this together. And at any rate, we're happy to share the methodology and, you know, make sure that NYCHA is vast. So make sure that we're cracking open all of the things we're learning to make sure they're bigger. So I'm getting the sign that we've run out of time for questions. I do want to, you know, underscore what Shanna was saying about PACT, that there was a practical thing there also about social service providers that groups can sign up if they haven't already done that. So I don't know if Shanna, you're able to drop something in the chat if there's a follow-up about that for more information. But, you know, a lot of this is the nuts and bolts of, like, how do you put those things in place? As Ellen's saying, sometimes it takes years. So getting going with some of these things. All right, and then I just want to acknowledge Amy Peterson, who, again, I can't see, but I'm just going to put it out there. Amy Peterson, who leads WorkDev in the city, who's an incredibly important person for this ecosystem. I was talking about NYCHA as a city within a city, but don't want to skip over the city of New York. And we're so lucky to have Amy and I think members of her team on this call. So acknowledging you. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Shanna. And now kicking it back to Carrie.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Adele. Thank you, Ellen and Shauna. and Elizabeth for keeping us moving here. I want to recognize we are behind in our schedule, and acknowledging that I am going to cut some time down from something I was going to present. But if Jesse from my team can put up some slides so you have a visual while I breeze through. So you've heard a little bit about the Jobs First process. I know Jen Mitchell mentioned it and Elizabeth mentioned it, and Gaspar, who will speak after me, will mention it. I'm actually really going to go through these quickly. I had some things to share with you, but I think that it's important for you to hear from our presenters and then to have some time to speak together. And this is a series of meetings to develop a collaborative. So in our next meeting, we will have time to go over the Jobs First process. I just think it's important for you to know that Jobs First, for those of you who don't know us, we are an intermediary and that we work at the intersection of workforce, economic development systems. And that includes education, training providers, public and private sector, philanthropy, probably all of you here on the Zoom meeting. And we are aligning, connecting ideas, policies, investments, and promising an effective practice in the workforce development field. Jess, if you could go to the next slide. So this is the process you've been hearing about. Instead of describing what each of these are, I'll drop a link to our website. But this is the 5-step process that Jobs First uses for partnership development. It is a method and a process that brings about very different looking partnerships. You've heard there's place-based partnerships, there's sector partnerships, there's partnerships that focus on a wide array of constituents and economic issues, including rezoning and all sorts of things going on in New York City. I'm going to just skip over going into each of these phases. And Jess, if you just could go to the next slide. And I want to reiterate that our process works across systems and that it is community and people centered. I think those are the most important things to understand right now, that we do not come up with the solutions in a echo chamber. It's with the community, it is with you, it is with the people who solutions and networks serve, voicing their needs. And it relies on partnership. Everything we do is in partnership. And that is why we've really invited you all here today to work together on a new approach at a very important time with the triple crises we're facing and a need to really reimagine what a better, more just economy looks like. So like I said, you'll learn more about our process in upcoming meetings, and I'm gonna toss it right to Jen Mitchell, who will introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. I really encourage everybody to, I think Jessica put I think Amanda, sorry, someone I saw put it in the chat, the process that Jobs First goes. I know as somebody who's been part of 2 other employment network processes, those steps are really crucial to bringing people in and making sure all voices in the community are represented. So that's what we're doing starting here today. And we're going to ask you at the end of today, who else should we bring in? Who else should we bring to the table? And I encourage folks to give us suggestions and reach out to people in your network so we can have as many people represented as possible. And I'm going to turn it over right now to Gaspar, who is the Partnership Director for Lesson. If there is an employment network that is held up as being kind of the one that's been around the longest and reflects everything we want this to reflect when we're doing it from a sector perspective, it really is Lesson. And so Gaspar, thank you for being here today to share some of your lessons with us. And those, for folks who don't know, Lesson stands for Lower East Side Employment Network. So without further ado, and trying to make up some of the lost minutes, Gaspar.
Thanks so much, Jen, for that introduction. And thank you, Jobs First NYC, for the opportunity to contribute to this conversation, which is so timely and important. Just as Jen introduced, I'm Gaspar Caro from the Lower East Side Employment Network, Partnership Director. And I'm just going to do my very best to breeze a little bit through Lower East Side Employment Network's history and how it might relate to this conversation and to this opportunity that the group is convening now. So there is one of my colleagues here, and there are several of you who have already heard my comments or others' comments. I'm going to try and keep it a little bit fresh. We were founded pretty organically and informally in the mid-aughts. Around 2006, we had a small group of community leaders in the Lower East Side who saw an explosion of economic development coming through to the neighborhood. The community board, which if everybody, hopefully everybody knows that New York City is comprised, consists of an array of community districts. And ours is called Manhattan's Community District 3, which is Chinatown, East Village, Lower East Side, and Two Bridges neighborhoods. The district manager at the time and one of the board members, who was also the executive director of University Settlement, saw a lot of new licenses, permitting, et cetera, for market rate housing, and also had been involved in decades-long conversations and awareness about a major tract of city-owned land now called Essex Crossing, previously called the Seward Park Urban Renewal Area. So it really began with a need. The way one of the other co-founders, David Garza, who is now the CEO and president of Henry Street Settlement and also the executive chair of Lesson, he describes it as the Jaws moment, where in the film, they saw this massive shark coming to eat everybody, and they were sitting in this tiny little boat saying, "Oh my God, we need a bigger boat." And I think that I would maybe change it to more of like a wave. I think a wave is probably a little bit less frightening a analogy, but really we were seeing a wave of construction, development, expansion of a nightlife and accommodations district. And at the same time, there was a community in great need. Lower East Side, for the most part, people know that it has a long history of organizing, but also of poverty and violence, and other vulnerable concerns, threats, et cetera, to residents of the area. And what paired with this economic development was poverty, was exclusion, things that are very much of concern now. So the co-founders were trying to position and create a vehicle through which residents of the neighborhood could attach and connect with the employment opportunities coming through this economic development and changes. So they pulled together a group of the who's who of nonprofit organizations doing workforce development, and just very informally started having regular conversations, calling one another, sometimes meeting in person, to try and connect one another to the opportunities that were coming through, because no single organization had the capacity to fulfill the needs of one new hotel with 200 rooms and 50 new jobs. If that hotel were to come to one organization, that organization might only be able to refer 15 people and get 4 or 5 people hired. But as a collaborative and an entity through which they could all tap into it, you multiply that by 5. So I think that it's first, there's the district profile, the inequality, the density, the public housing, et cetera. Also the number of proximate community-based organizations with this history. This wave, like I mentioned, this economic development wave. And I think that that's a very good comparison to what this group is trying to wrap their heads around, which is a green economy wave that has already been happening for a while, but is definitely going to grow and take off. So Jobs First helped facilitate a process through which we could, in a supportive and encouraging environment, really grow and cultivate our collaboration. We've given pretty modest goals of how many hires per year we were going to achieve. We were able to fund a coordinator who I was the first one to fill that role, to keep the momentum of the collaborative conversation really going. And I was focused on the core goals of attaching to immediate opportunities for employment, while at the same time trying to manage and connect the training opportunities. And the value of this network was to really combine our staffing and communication resources and to make sure that all of the organizations had a seat at the table with any burgeoning opportunities. And it really does connect with some of this diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations for the community. We now know to describe it DEI, but really it was an opportunity for the neighborhood to have an easily accessed vehicle through which residents could learn about opportunities and connect to them. And that so new builders or new operators in the neighborhood had a very easy, quick way to tap into a knowledge base and a connection to the community. So bringing it back to this Green Jobs Network, I really do believe that it's far ahead. You know, looking at the different steps for developing something like this, the group has already initiated the conversation and has already imagined what could be possible. Now it's an opportunity to implement, and that's where everybody in this roundtable really can contribute something. And although Lesson was a place-based and is a place-based network, what's really exciting here is a sectoral opportunity that can pull really any organization from the city if they have the capacity, the passion, and the interest to stay attached. So, you know, with that, I think that it's timely to bring it back to Jen and Carrie to introduce our next speaker. And again, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to contribute to this conversation.
Gaspar, thank you so much. And Diana, I think you're about to bring Eric on.
I'm on mute. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. My name is Diana Torres. I'm the Director of Community Solutions at JobsFirstNYC. For the past few months, I've had the honor of facilitating a green sector working group with the Nontraditional Employment for Women, the HOPE program, and Green City Force team. And they have combined experience in sustainability, construction, energy efficiency, urban farming, resilient buildings, and the environment. And they manage employer relationships. They lead sector-based instruction, training, and program development and valuation. And they connect businesses, employers to diverse New York City talent that are often underrepresented in these fields. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce Eric Antoco, who will tell you a little bit more about his experience working with the group in the past few months. As part of the group, we also have Aaron Marcel, Alumni Training and Advancement Manager at Green City Force, and Trey Michael Reed, Business Development Manager at the HOPE Program and Sustainable South Bronx. They couldn't be here, but Eric Antoco will share a little bit more about his experience, some of the challenges and benefits of working together, their vision for a green economy network, and how it can benefit both job seekers, employers, the businesses, and the city. I'll pass it over to Eric.
Thank you so much, Diana, and definitely want to co-sign the shout outs to our fellow group members, as well as Lisbeth, Jen, and Kathleen for setting this all in motion, and especially to you, Diana. I want to start off with the first point about this network being that it's absolutely critical that you have a facilitator who is on point to actually lead and organize these meetings. I think a fully horizontal network wouldn't have worked out nearly as well as it has. And so extra kudos to Diana, and definitely a lesson learned for future evolutions of this group, that you have to have a point person or organization like Jobs First that makes this a priority, maintains that library of our ideas, and helps to bring them back at later dates when, Trey Michael or Aram or myself have already forgotten that we had that idea a few weeks ago. So far, it's been a really effective sort of informal pilot group where we've optimized, filling gaps in job orders. As Gaspar was mentioning, we've really talked a lot about how industry trends have been shifting, especially employer hiring practices, best practices for training in this new COVID era. And so I think it's been a really valuable network, just in the fact that we've been able to get some additional opportunities for folks in this pilot stage, and that, as we all try to tackle this new environment, we've been able to share some best practices where that might not be sort of a top priority, but it is a long-term and important way for us to work better together. So definitely excited for the next evolution of this. And talking about kind of the benefits of what we envision to be a green economy jobs network. A primary piece of it is exactly what Gaspar was talking about, where you can do batch referrals from organizations where each single organization might not be able to fill that need. And as we know in workforce development, that relationship with the employer is absolutely critical. And so having that relationship run through a single point of contact or organization in this green economy jobs network helps to facilitate that, as well as to create sort of specialized training that helps to kind of homogenize the skill set of the referral batch, so that the employer has a positive experience, gets a great batch of candidates, and comes back for more the next time, speaks to their fellow sector employers, and the reputation builds from there. And so one thing that we've been talking about a lot is sort of gathering that anchor employer to get that sort of reputation begun, and then to come back to some of that the folks from Nyserda were talking about, to then to bring that down to more small scale employers. And so I know we're running a bit short of time here, so I just wanted to just note that in our conversations we've talked a lot about how employers will be willing to do this, to participate with this green economy jobs network, if there's incentive for them, both in terms of positive quality of job candidates and in terms of a reputational boost. And so if this is something where us as a community of workforce development organizations and advocates can come together to say, fund this training, really make an impact on this community, and then we'll help to shout out and really make sure that the recognition is given for work that's done to infuse some equity into the communities that are being supported here through career tracks, then that's something that really makes this a network in the truest sense of the word. And so I think definitely a lot more to talk about here. I'm really, definitely happy to be part of the group and want to have future conversations and even conversations later on today. So excited that you all are here, and I'll pass it back to Carrie, I believe, right?
Yes, thank you, Eric. Eric and Gaspar, I'm sorry your time got cut a little short today, and what you have to share with the group is endlessly relevant and important to what we're doing here today. I know there's a lot of lessons that you can share, and I hope that you will continue to join us through this process so that we can hear from you in a more substantive way than you having to kind of breeze through your comments today. So thank you all. It is also equally important for everyone who's with us to have time to speak together in some facilitated breakout conversations. So please don't take that as a cue to jump off. We ask you to stick around and turn on your audio and your video, as Jesse is going to ask you to go into one of 3 breakout rooms, and you'll see an invitation to accept. When you do that, Jen, Lisbeth, and Kathleen each will be in each one of those to help facilitate the conversation. But again, I'll ask you to turn to your participant agenda, and you'll see, remember the breakout room that you're assigned to. And each breakout room has its own table at the top that says breakout 1, 2, and 3. And there's questions in there that we want you to discuss and also fill in. And you have this participant agenda, you have access to it. And so feel free to be more focused in conversation and then take time afterward to type in comments. But there'll also be some Jobs First folks in there to help capture some comments as you're speaking. So let's jump to it so you have a good maybe 10 minutes to speak together. Thank you. As everyone comes back, thank you for contributing your ideas, your thoughts, your reflections, the role you might play in this work. I know we've run short on time. If a few of you could stick around a couple of extra minutes, please do. And if you can't, please continue to fill in the public agenda. These will become our archive of these meetings, and this will be our way of following up with you in a really meaningful way and being reflective of how you want to be a part of this. And how we could make the process work, how it can be as inclusive as possible. There are no bad questions, there are no bad ideas. We have, it's been amazing having some leadership to push this forward, but you're now all invited to this planning table, and we will continue to move a process forward. It's 11:30 and I recognize some people have to go. And if you don't, I just want to work together. There's two things I want to point out in our participant agenda. One is up at the top, you'll see there's a working definition that has been labored over and wordsmithed and thought about. A lot of consideration is going into this. And you will see that we think of the green economy and the circular economy or a sustainable economy, other ways that this is referenced, as truly all encompassing. Everything could be part of a green economy. And if you're talking about a just and fair economy, there's not too many jobs that really get left out of that. But at the time that we're in right now, and recognizing that so much is going on between all of us working from home, an election next week that's wilder than we could have ever imagined, and the stresses that we're all coping with, I really see the time as now as an opportunity to re-envision the way that we're doing this work, the way that we work together, the way that we all impact and influence each other, and what we can do together to build something strong and solid, and make New York City a place where all people thrive. So, I'll get off my soapbox and ask you to join in with us. And the other thing I want to point out is there are some resources that were placed in this document. Please contribute to those resources, things that you think should be shared, things that you want people to read. It could be anything from a funding opportunity to your own blog posting. And then also going down toward the bottom, you will see, and this is something that will be consistent in every meeting that we have, on what is now, our pages numbers are growing, so I'm still scrolling. It is now on page 20. There is a table that says intentions. You could think of these as action items. You could think of these as commitments. We want you to be committed. We want you to remember things that you learned here and the way that you felt and wanting to be part of something. And I went ahead and put in some action commitments that we'll ask of you, but if there's anything that anyone wants to raise their hand and say, they feel committed to, or they intend to do, or something they're thinking about as a result of this meeting, feel free to put it in the chat, or raise your hand and we'll call on you, or just go ahead and type it in the participant agenda. While people are thinking about that and considering that, I will go over just some things that I put in there. There's a feedback form. Please fill it out. This is crucial to our work. We hope you attend the next meeting. We slated it for November 25th, but I recognized after I looked at the calendar this morning that that's the day before Thanksgiving. So I would like some feedback, and I'll figure out the best way to do that if that's just an awful day to have the next meeting, and we'll try and look for another one. And then also think about, who's important in this work, who are influencers, who are employers you work with that need to know that this is going on, who are peers, who else in your agency might be a change maker or a decision maker that should be involved in the conversation at our next meeting. And then there will be a follow-up email. Respond to any requests in that follow-up email. That's what I ask. If there's something you want to contribute, it sounds like people are feeling like they're absorbing. I see you, Sam. Don't wish you did anything different than you did. You're here, and that's important. And I'm glad you're absorbing the information. Tanya, thanks for being here, and congratulations again on your leadership at Green City Force. We know you'll be an integral part of this conversation going forward.
Thanks, Carrie.
And okay, I don't see anything else. I didn't see hands raised. I'm sure folks have other things to get to today. I want to thank you, Kathleen, Lisbeth, Jen. I'm sure if you want to just chime in with your own voices, thanking everyone. I know you're grateful for folks being here.
Thank you all for being here. Really looking forward to continuing the work with you all.
Thank you, and thank you, Carrie.
Yeah, and I want to recognize the Jobs First team. Thanks for your support and suggestions along the way. This is our first meeting in this format, and we are really excited. It's a new way of building community, and thank you for being a part of it. Okay, we'll see you in November.